Good morning. It's Scott Tempesta from Sailing Anarchy. This is our fourth edition of our video series entitled 15 Minutes of Fame. And I'm lucky enough to be joined today by designer Bob Perry. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, dude, thanks for taking time out. I noticed just real quickly our backdrops. So, you know, I have some half-assed trophy and a 1 meter IOM 1 meter sail and some Indianapolis 500 thing, and then I see like the legacy of some of your boats behind you. So it's a pretty big gap in what we've done in the game. It is amazing how long you've been at this game, and really, frankly, not even just the longevity, which is in and of itself amazing. It's just the variance of the number and kind of boats, successful boats, that you've done. I mean, it's quite a legacy. Is there anything that you attribute to that? I mean, because listen, designers have come and gone. Some pass away, unfortunately. Doug Peterson. You haven't, though. You came and you're still here. How do you explain that?
Well, fear of being poor would be one thing. You know, I want to be able to. I grew up in Australia, and if you saw the way we lived, you'd say you were poor, because when you're poor, you always know somebody who's more poor than you are. So you don't think of yourself as poor. They're poor.
Right.
We're fine. But when we moved to the U.S. in 1957, everything changed, and much better quality of life here, and I enjoy a good quality of life. I live here always wanted a house on a beach. Now I have a house on the beach. I have an indoor swimming pool. I've never really wanted my office in the house, but now I have the office in the house. I love it.
Right.
You know, it's just, I don't know. I just want what I want.
And it looks to me like you've got it. How's the virus up in your neck of the woods, and how is it affecting your craft?
Well, it's not, because I work at home. It's not affecting me at all. There's about I live on a private beach. There's about 30 houses on the beach, and half of them are weekend summer cabins, and the other half are permanent residents. And I can go for days without talking to anybody. I talked to a guy yesterday. I take the dogs for a walk. I don't see anybody. So it really, the only thing that's changed is I make fewer trips to the grocery store. But I've been social distancing since we moved up here full time.
And how long's that been?
10 years.
10 years. You're ahead of the curve, Bob, once again. And then how about your business? So, you know, are people more hesitant to to commission you to do a design? Are they putting designs on hold? Or do you find that people are still want, as you said, they want what they want?
I just got a new commission yesterday. Don't have the check yet, but hopefully. Yeah, I think people are a little more nervous about it now, but I've got enough work to keep me very busy.
What is the commission you got yesterday?
It'll be a mid 40-foot fast cruising boat.
Does that seem to be a range that you spent? I mean, the 40-foot range. Am I wrong in thinking that's predominantly where most of your designs are?
Oh yeah, that 44-foot, 45-foot, middle 40-footers. I mean, we did in a couple of years. I did the Lafitte 44, the Norseman 44, the Choi Lee 44. The Nordic 44, but I knew what you could do with 44 feet.
I'll say. I mean, that seems to be a sweet spot, right? That 40 to 45. It seems to be where a lot of people are comfortable size-wise. It'll do basically anything you want it to do, right? Yeah. And you don't have all the management issues of a 50-footer plus.
Right. I sometimes I piss and moan because I never got to do a 145-footer, but you know, that takes an army of designers, right?
Yeah.
Do one of those boats. And when I do a boat that's 45 feet long, I don't need any help. I know that boat, right? I can relate to that boat. I can sail that boat. So I can do a better job on that. I can do a good job on that. Where a 145-foot boat would have me feeling a little inadequate to begin with, you know.
Sure. But we feel your pain, Bob, that you haven't ever achieved a 145-footer. I mean, wow. I don't know how you'll overcome that burden.
And it's another thing. I wouldn't relate to the owner of that boat. You know, that's not my world. I mean, I might like it to be, but you know, I think of being on a 145-foot boat, and my biggest concern would be, has anybody seen the cat? You know, I mean, so whereas an owner of a 40-foot boat, a 45-foot boat, I can relate to that guy. You know, we're right on the same level.
Right. I see it. So one of the things that I love to do in these interviews is not only get guys like you on board, and you specifically in this case, but you know, I always post to the forum, getting people to ask questions, and you by far have literally overwhelmed the page with questions here. So if you don't mind, I think I'll just jump right into that. Is that cool? Good, awesome. Ajax in Maryland wants to know, has Bob ever considered drawing modern reboots of some of his most popular designs, i.e. Valiant 2.0?
No, not consciously, but I did a boat, 45-footer for a guy in Austria. He's actually a Swedish guy who works in Austria. And he wanted a double ender. And the boat's being built in Estonia. And as I worked on that design, I really realized I'm sort of redoing the Valiant 40. But I didn't set out initially to redo the Valiant 40.
Right.
No, I've never. Well, actually, I did with the Toshiba 31 and the Toshiba 36. Those were both efforts to do a more modern version of the Baba 30 and the Baba 35, also called the Flying Dutchman 35. Then I did the CT56, was sort of a newer version of the CT54. So yeah, I've done a few of those. I design them. I don't memorize them.
Right, got it. Why, speaking of some of those designs, why have double enders been so prevalent in so much of your work?
Boy, I don't know. I think it goes back to the Sports Illustrated article about Westsail. And all of a sudden people thought, if you're going to go offshore, you have to have points on both ends of the boat. And, you know, I knew you didn't. But it doesn't matter. It's a romantic image, right?
Sure.
And just that image, and people will come up with all these ideas of why a double ender is more seaworthy. And I could make some arguments. The double-ended form working better than a big wide stern, because as the double-ender heels over it, virtually the same shape at any angle heel, almost. Whereas a big wide stern boat is a totally different boat at 30 degrees than it is at 0.
Sure.
But it's aesthetics. I never try and justify a double-ender. I just say, you want a double-ender? You can have a double-ender.
Right. There you go. Well, it's certainly
as much as I love them, these days, if I was doing a boat for myself, I'd want a transom because I'd want that boarding platform.
I know. It's interesting how right. There was a time when you never even thought about a boarding platform. Now it's almost, essential for some of the more modern boats.
Yeah.
So let's keep going here. These are fun. Black Socks, he's from Ireland. Question is, did he ever have one of those days, weeks, years when he said, fuck it, I'm quitting this design and I'm going to be at X? If so, what caused it and what was the X?
I did have that day. It's when I was working for Dick Carter. And I don't know what caused it. I don't know what brought it on, but you know, Dick had the most, not influential, but prestigious clientele. The woman who owned this big fabulous Italian jewelry company, I can't remember the name of it, one. And I thought, boy, I'm going to spend the rest of my life designing toys for rich guys. And no, I don't want to do that. I want to become a physical therapist and do something nice for people. So I called up, and I can't remember who I called, some university here, find out I had 4 years of college but no degree. I want to know how much of my college would apply towards how much more college I needed to be a physical therapist. And it was like, oh, another 20 years of college, you can be a physical therapist. I thought, well, bad idea. I think I'll be a yacht designer. I think that, I mean, it was essentially, I'd have to gone back for another 4 years of college.
Do you have a degree in naval architecture?
I don't have a degree, period. I mean, I went to the only university in the Pacific Northwest that would take me, and they took me on probation. I could only take so many credit hours per quarter, and I had to average, I can't remember, some grade point average. And I did, but 3.5 years into it, I quit.
You know, I was on the 5-year program at San Diego State, and I didn't get a degree either. So I know what you're talking about. All right, let's go back to these. These are really fun. Sorry, I know I've said that 100 times. This is Robolex 117. He doesn't know where he is. Let's see. Question is, for a designer that is more mature, you have a big presence on SA and Facebook. You're very open about talking about your designs, projects, and answering questions from the peanut gallery. I don't know of any other designers that do that. Care to comment on why you have such a presence and not any others?
Well, I can't speak for why not any others. For me, I don't know. I think back, you know, I became friends with Bill Garden, and he never really encouraged me. In fact, he sort of worked hard to discourage me in many ways. And one day he said to me, never let them take your picture. He said, because everybody has an image in their head of what a yacht designer looks like. And you don't want to mess with that image. So don't let them take your picture. And over time, I've thought, I'm kind of just the opposite. And this other thing of keep it mysterious. Keep it mysterious so that the layman thinks in his head, I can't possibly understand. Well, I figured out, well, I can explain it and explain it and explain it and explain it. And some guys might get it, and the other guys, they're never going to get it.
Right.
I don't care how much explanation they get. And the more I explain, the more magical the process looks to them, right? Because they just can't understand how you go from an idea. When I started design, I started from an idea. I see the boat. I see it standing along, beam reach, you know. And then I start dissecting that idea and pulling the elements out and turning it into a drawing. But there's guys that can't understand how you do that. So any explanation just makes it more and more complicated for them.
Sure.
And I like to talk about the boats. I like to write. I like to have firsthand contact with my owners. You know, I got on Facebook and I was just fiddling around with it for a while. You know, well, I've been sailing anchor for 20 years.
I know you have. I mean, you've been here. We've been publishing for 21 years. So yeah, you've been
Oh,
here
yeah.
like virtually every step of the way, which I thank
Yeah.
you for, by the way.
Welcome. Thank you. So I got on Facebook, and then one day I'm piddling around and trying to see Robert H. Perry Yacht Designer Fan Club. And then, what the fuck? So I went there, and here's this page set up. It's a fan club. I'm like, geez. And there were about 330 members. So I had to apply to join.
Your own fan page.
And get approved. And I think as of yesterday, there's like 6,790 members on the fan club. And it just, I kind of try and feed it. You know, it's like a plant. I kind of give it enough water and fertilizer that it keeps it vital. And it's brought me in firsthand contact with all these boat owners. And I talk to them, right? And I can't believe I've got Bob Perry. I'm talking to Bob Perry. I'm just a guy, right? And I get so much out of it.
No, you're not just a guy.
No. But here at the beach, I have no social life, at zero. And so that's my social life. And I learn a lot, and I've gotten some work out of it. That's been great. And it's just fun, just plain fun.
Well, you do a great job at it. There's no
I was never a photographer. There's one thing I did wrong was I didn't build up this photographic record of my work over the years. I just plain was a piss poor photographer. But there, I just put out the call. Send me pictures of your boats. And boom, now everybody's sending in photographs. So I've got this huge archive, photographic archive of my work.
That is so great.
And sometimes if I get down in the dumps about something, I just go to my photo files and start looking at the photos and thinking, damn.
Sorry about that. Hang on. That was really bad. That was very unprofessional for my phone to ring. Barry, but nobody's really surprised by that. Mr. Clean, the legendary Mr. Clean has a question or two for you. Okay. Some of these are pretty specific. Can you tell us the 3 stupidest owner requests you've ever been given? You can maybe make it just one for brevity's sake, but that's the first question. And what is the most innovative thing, boat, feature, whatever, an owner has ever asked you to design?
No, I don't really have any answers. I had one client who was an extremely good sailor, fabulous guy, tons of money, but he couldn't read a drawing. And every time I'd meet him at the yard, we go in to look at the boat under construction, it was always a surprise to him. Like, I didn't know I was getting that. Don, you've had the drawings for a year. And one time he wanted to know why we couldn't have this kind of a tunnel back to the engine room. And I said, that would have to be a tunnel on the outside of the hull. That was probably one of the stupid things people asked for. The trouble is, what's made some of my designs good is that I've taken those stupid ideas and made them work. You know, there's boat at Pacific Seacraft, a 62-footer. He couldn't decide whether he wanted a center cockpit or an aft cockpit. So I casually said one day, well, you could have both. And he said, oh, all right, let's have both, which sort of buggered up a few things, but that was my stupid comment. No, I have a pretty good, by the time a guy commits to working with me, we know we're going to get along. I end up friends with all my clients. And if he asks for something stupid, I'll just say, I just don't think that's going to work. Or I'll try, I'll take a look at it.
Sure.
And then say, no.
Yeah, very good. Okay, really quickly, I don't want you to spend any time on this because I don't even know what it means. What's wrong with origami hats?
You know what that's a reference to?
I do not.
Brent Swain.
Got you. Got
Don't you think?
It probably has to be. I don't even know.
Awesome.
All right, we'll move on from him. Let's see.
Please.
Sassafras in where is it? Bocas del Toro. Designing is art. Each designer has their own unique styles and talents to set them apart. Of his contemporaries, young and old, what are some of these traits he admires, and how have they shaped his own approach?
Oh, that's an interesting question because, you know, I grew up, when I started drawing in the 60s, the early 60s, every magazine had a design section. And most magazines published 4 new designs every month. And there was rudder, there was yachting, there was popular boating, there was motorboating and sailing. Then you had your regional magazines. National Fisherman had a design section. And so each month, there were all these new designs, and I would cut them out and file them away in a box and study them every day. Sit down with my breakfast and pull out a handful and study these designs. So I became attracted to the work of guys like Bill Tripp, Phil Rhodes, Sparkman Stevens, Georg Nielsen, Bill Lapworth, Skip Dawkins, Charles Witholtz, Tom Gilmer, Ted Brewer. And I would, and of course, Bill Garden, and I would just study their work and consciously try and absorb it. Just absorb the proportions, mostly the proportions and the aesthetics. And I worked on it. You know, when you're 15, 16 years old, for me, it was, you know, girls, guitars, and boats, right? And when you're 16 years old, you got a lot of juice. You got a lot of juice. And the girls aren't taken care of. So might as well be guitars and boats, right?
That's funny.
So you put in a tremendous amount of energy.
Right.
I look at what I did. I should have had a doctor's degree. I mean, live the hours I put into it.
This is way more fun.
Yeah, I've been a crummy attorney and a really bad CPA.
But a hell of a boat designer. On the subject of designers, I just want to bring one to the forefront here. Doug Peterson. Give me a synopsis of what you think about Doug's work.
You know, he just had that touch. He had that touch where he had that feel, like Laurie Davidson. They just they can handle the numbers, but they see the numbers, or they see the numbers as shapes, and they just have a feel for it, you know.
And Doug did. He really and truly did.
Yeah, he really did. He
No
really
doubt.
did. I mean, when you look at Ganbare, it was such a beautiful shape. And I was working for Dick Carter when he came out in that North American Regattas in San Diego.
It was.
And when we saw he won, the first thing at the time was Eve Marie Tanton, Chuck Payne, Mark Lindsay, and me. And I was sitting there, and somebody's got a magazine. Says it was won by Doug Peter. That can't be the same Doug Peterson who was just here. Doug had worked for Dick for this story for between 2 weeks and a month. He'd been in the tower, right? And then he disappeared. The next time he shows up, he's won this regatta with his boat that, Dick looks at it and said, oh, it's way too short.
Right.
It's just way too short. And the magic to that boat was he just realigned how much boat you need to how much rig you need. So he came out with a big rig on a little smaller boat, and it really worked.
Also,
And he had a beautiful way with the shapes. Just tragic that he died young. I never met him.
never met him.
No, never did.
Your entire career, never
Never.
met Doug. Wow, that's kind of amazing. Just a quick anecdote from my end. So when I came down to San Diego, I don't know how many, I don't even want to think how many years ago. I knew nobody, but somehow I got hooked up sailing a FAR 37 sister ship to McGizzy, a boat called Freefall. Really great boat. The guy brought it out on the West Coast, and there I was, and they asked me if I could steer, and I'm like, yeah, I can steer. Hell yes, I can steer. So did an IOR regatta. We did really well. And, you know, Doug had a lot of his boats out there at the time. So did Nelson, had some boats out there too. And I just remember standing at the bar. I knew nobody at San Diego Yacht Club, super intimidated, thinking like, I don't really know that I really belong here, but okay. And guy standing next to me, he looked over at me and he goes, oh, you were on that FAR boat, huh? And I go, yeah. I go, the thing is great. And he goes, I mean, he goes, it's not that great. And I go, really? I mean, we won. And he goes, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. And it turned out it was Doug Peterson. So I'm flipping out. I'm going, okay, I was just some weenie from nowhere. And now I'm still a weenie, but I'm somewhere. And I'm not only somewhere, I'm at the bar at San Diego Yacht Club, and Doug Peterson's actually talking to me. And I was freaking out because, you know, Doug was Doug, and it was just the most amazing experience, you know, and I'll never forget it. So I feel fortunate to have been friends with Doug, and yes, I agree, passed way too soon. All right, let's go here. Flick from your neck of the woods, Olympia, Washington. I've wondered what Bob thinks from a design perspective of the Kettenberg boats. There's something that just seems right about the cabin proportions and coach roof crowns of the Kettenberg design boats.
Oh, I always loved them. From PC, Kettenberg 38. When I started racing in the big boat series out here, there was a K40 named Thetis that just kicked ass. And boy, I really studied that boat. And the K50 I thought was me.
Yeah, it was me. Yeah, it was. It was.
But the other ones I loved.
Exactly. I think there's nobody alive who can't love those boats. They're just exactly
K43 is a really pretty boat.
Really good boat.
Yeah.
Okay. Matagi in he doesn't know where. A couple questions here. What design are you jealous of?
Well, that's hard to say. I've always been jealous of the design work done by the guy who did the Baltic interiors. Because I think I'm really good at interiors, but I look at his stuff and I think, damn, he's better than me.
Who did those? Because I know Doug designed some Baltics back in the day, but
he didn't do the interiors.
He did not. No, he didn't.
And this guy introduced all these angles, but they all worked. You look at somebody like Tim Jackets that does the tartans. He likes to use angles too, but he'll use an angle to gain on one side, but he pays for it on the other side. Whereas the guy that did the Baltics, he gained on both sides. And I just wished, well, I wish I could do that, you know. So jealous of that. I mean, I can't help but be jealous of Bill Garden's eye. He didn't have much of a clue what made a fast sailboat or a good sailing boat, but he had an eye that could pull in such disparate elements and proportions and make them all work. So they all look just right and natural. And he just did it like nobody else. You know, I used to practice when I was a kid. I used to practice writing my name with Bill Garden's address. You know, like that's where my office was. And I used to practice drawing his little men that he put on his boats. But I always, you know, at some point in time, you realize you're not going to be Bill Garden. But I'm not jealous. I'm not jealous. You know, it's that got to come to terms with the fact that you won't be that good. But in other ways, in some ways, I'm better than Bill.
Right. And you admire, listen, you have to admire some people's work. It probably doesn't mean jealous. Okay, let's see. He's got a couple other questions, but here's one. Among current production designs, is there anything that has impressed him lately, and why not?
No. The only thing that's impressed me lately, and I think it's smart, is where they're cleaning up deck layouts, running lines underneath, coming back at winches. I mean, if you go back to when you and I were younger, when every line had a winch, now you get a 45-foot boat and it's got 4 winches on it, right?
Right.
And which probably isn't really a good thing. It's a pain in the ass, depending on what you're doing sometimes. But to hide all those lines and to get the lines off the deck and clean up decks, I think is a good thing.
Agreed. Here's one that take us slightly off topic, but that's okay. This is from Controversial Post. He doesn't know where he's from. Bob, you seem very active for your age. Would you attribute that to a daily consumption of bleach, as our esteemed Commander-in-Chief recommends?
Yes.
Very good. Simple answer. Here we go. All right. Let's see. So good ones. Swim Sailor wants to know, what was the design that, quote, got away? An awesome proposal or brief of note that the owner passed on?
Well, boy, hard to say. I kept hoping Doug Fryer would have me design another boat for him after I did Night Runner, because Night Runner was so successful. And hey, let's do a bigger, faster, lighter, more high-tech Night Runner.
Right.
But you couldn't, Doug said they're going to carry my dead lifeless body off Night Runner. And essentially they did here a week ago. So that never came about. No, I don't know. I don't have time to think about the ones that got away.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. This is a pretty good one. This is his last question. 21 years ago, I asked Bruce Nelson how to become a yacht designer. He told me to go to business school and become a banker. I hated that advice and eventually became a banker, one of the worst periods of my life. What advice would you give to a 23-year-old asking the same question?
Get a college degree. Get a college degree in some main area, computer science or mechanical engineering or materials engineering or something, so they can always fall back on something like that and get a job. Marry a wealthy woman. That's another good way. The world of yacht design, I guess it was not a big deal to me because I was a musician, right?
Right.
So I was used to sporadic paychecks and lean times and fat times. So when I got into yacht design, it just, you just come and go with it, right? There were times when I can remember needing some cash on a Sunday afternoon, and there was a little bank in my grocery store, and I wrote a check for $150, and you don't have sufficient money in your account. That I can remember times when I had guys working for me, when I'd pay them on Friday, but I couldn't pay me. More than once. I always paid people. I always tried to treat my employees the way I wanted to be treated. You just got to be ready for, I don't know. My wife was a school teacher. She retired after 35 years, and the stability of her paycheck, she had a master's degree. Her steady job allowed me to live a fairly normal life with a family and buy a house and things like that, and plan for retirement. She's the one that takes care of all the bookkeeping in the house, financial planning. And I get to play. I mean, the one thing I think about, I thought about yesterday is Good Old Boat's going to do this series of articles written by Rob Mazza. Rob was one of the head guys at CNC for years. It's called, I think, The Era of Legendary Yacht Designers.
Mm.
She sent me an email, or she called me. So we're going to do that. And I said, oh, that sounds great. I'd be happy to help. What can I do to help? She said, well, we need a bunch of your drawings, a bunch of photographs of your boats, and we need photographs of you starting from when you were young. I said, well, hang on a minute. This legendary yacht designer, are you saying I'm one of the legendary yacht designers? She said, yes. I said, well, I thought you had to be dead to be legendary. And she said, well, you're one of the young ones. So I look back and, my dad, and I was thinking yesterday, why do I crave that recognition? Just, why is it so important to me to put it here on Facebook? Look at me, look at me. And then I'm just thinking, sometimes you still want your dad to say, hey, you did good.
Nice job, son.
Nice job, son. Instead of, you rat bag, you're going to be a bum your whole life. Or in Australian lingo, you're always going to be a drongo.
Drongo?
Drongo, yeah.
I think I'll name my next boat that, Bob.
Drongo.
So, okay, I don't want to spend too much time on, so there's a lot of music questions. I'm only going to ask one. So you were in a band called Springfield Rifle. And here's one question from Ishmael. He always from Fuccafinio. So, oh yeah, Fuccafinio. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Yeah. It's a town. I'd like to visit that town.
That's up in north of Vancouver.
Oh, it is?
Fuccafinio.
Got it. Bob, why did you switch from guitar to bass?
Well, I was playing lead guitar on my big Gibson Super 400 in a band, and we were pretty good, but our popularity was waning. And another band asked me to come and play on a recording session with them. Their lead guitar heroes. He was my age, but he'd been in it forever, and he was good. So it made no sense for me to think about playing lead guitar in that band. And I did a recording session with them. And I played 12-string guitar. And then after that, they said, well, we want you to join the band. I said, oh, good. But we want you to play bass, which didn't surprise me because there's no way in hell I was going to replace their lead guitar player. And they were, the other guys in that band were guys I'd looked up to for years. I mean, some of the best. So I just, sure, I'll play bass. And I've never looked back. I just sort of found my voice playing the bass. Still play guitar, but I'm most comfortable playing bass.
Got it. All right, we're going to end on this question. We could even do, there's so many questions, we could even do a part 2 if you're up for this, Bob. I know this has been torturous enough. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you said no. So this is from Hugh Janus, and his question is, the Flying Tigers seem promising, and he's talking about the 10M. The Flying Tigers seem promising as a design and was initially offered at an amazing price point. Yet the class stalled after a year or two with owners bickering, sales falling off, and OD racing that never got traction. What happened? Was it over-promised, under-delivered by the builder, lack of dealer network and after-sales support, inconsistent quality control, inconsistent production of hulls, making some more competitive than others? poor class management, crazy owners, or did it just die a natural death? This website, meaning Sailing Anarchy, invested a lot of effort supporting you, the builder, and the class, and seems like there was potential for a different outcome.
Probably all the above. I think for Bill Stevens, God love him, for him it was the chase.
Mm.
You know, it was the chase. And once he had the boat rolling, that I'm out of here.
Exactly.
And then he handed it over to his son, who really had, you know, not much connection and interest in doing it. Some of the build problems had to do with the guy, I can't even remember his name, the guy we had over there in China to supervise.
The round eye.
He lost interest and wasn't spending enough time at the yard. And I think Bill underestimated the amount of effort it takes to put together a Type 1 design class. I mean, you've got to be on it. It's a full-time job for somebody. And we built 120 of them. The last 20 went to the Chinese Navy. Bill was very generous. I made out real well on that. He was a great guy to work with. And you know, the boat was originally designed for the Chinese, a boat to market in China. And you know, growing up, it just developed its own life on Sailing Anarchy. I got a call one day from a guy from some business university in Chicago, wanting to know about the business model. Where did the business model come from?
What business model?
What is a business model?
So true, right? I don't know, Bob. I don't know if it was you or it was the builder, if you will, Bill Stevens, that sent me the rendering of what the boat was going to look like, and I put it up on SA. And you know, I just, the more I looked at it, the more I liked like everything that it sort of had and what I thought it would do. And I'm sure I asked you, what do you think about this thing in light air? And you said it's going to be a great light air boat, nice and thin, big rig. And so I bought one. You know, I got in early, and just to show you how much am I the only guy ever, Bob, to have owned two of those things?
Early on, there were a couple guys that bought several. Don't you remember? There was that crazy guy in Chicago that had like
yes.
What was his name?
I forget. He was crazy. He probably still is crazy.
Didn't he buy three?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
All poorly sailed. Well, and you know, I remember just knocking heads with Bill over so many aspects of the boat. You know, I started talking about him. I go, well, what are you doing for a rig? He goes, we're doing aluminum sprit. And I go, you can't, you just cannot do. So, you know, I found CTS, right? And they built these really, I mean, listen, they were crude, but I don't know if any of them have broken the mast boom and sprit. You know, I remember butting heads with them over the sails. You know, they're all going to be Neil Pride sails. And I'm like, Bill, you're not going to get sailmakers involved if their customer says, hey, I'm thinking about a Flying Tiger, and the sailmaker knows he's not going to get any of that. Why would the sailmaker write? He'd go, no, I think you should get something else, you know? So I just had to hammer him over so many of these things. And, you know, he finally sort of acquiesced and realized that I knew what I was talking about. But yeah, I think you're right, Bob. I think the answer to all of those questions is it was pretty much all of those things. It was just quality control was the fucking biggest thing. I mean, I think a couple of the first boats that got here, their engine trap doors just fell off, just came up while they were sailing. You know, it's like, what the hell? So, you know, I think it was too much of an obstacle ultimately for the class to overcome, because as you sort of alluded to, the class wasn't structured well. There was no real business plan or even marketing plan with where it was going to go in the States. And had there been, there'd have been 500 of these things sold, honestly, just at the price point and the performance that they give in most conditions. They're not so great in a breeze up wind, but they do a lot of things really, really well. That's why I have my second one. So I have to thank you for that, Bob, because I mean, it was a performance boat that probably people didn't really see coming. I mean, oh, Bob Perry designs those, Valiant 40s and big piggy things. And what's he know about these things? Well, as it turned out, Bob, you knew quite a bit. I mean, that thing to this day is a rocket ship in light air, especially. So,
Well, I remember somewhere in there, I was accused of just knocking off the Milgis 32.
mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm.
And the irony of that was I never looked at the Milgis until I was accused of knocking it off. Oh, I better go check out what that was.
Listen, I owned a Milgis 32. They were two completely separate boats.
Yeah. Well, Flying Tigers is still racing today and making people happy.
Yep. Makes
And,
me happy for sure. So
I had a good time with the project.
I still do. All right, Bob, listen, I'm going to end this because it's long and we could talk forever. But I got to thank you, man. I really appreciate your well thought out answers and giving us a peek to sort of the body of work that you've done. It's very impressive, and you're a good man and a good friend.
Same, Scott.
Thank you very much. We'll talk soon, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.